Capcom's newest Resident Evil game can often be seen as ordinary or simple. In a horror series full of icons, it is filled with amazing set pieces and absolutely stunning views. But by the end of RE Village, you can often be left questioning who is Ethan Winters and why is he so unforgettable. Today, we are breaking down 5 of RE8's most important mechanics and how they shape our experiences. We will be looking at Ethan's endurance, sacrifice, and what someone is willing to do for their child. And by the end of it, you'll understand why his story stands out more than most modern day horror games ever will. And while you're here, welcome to the channel. Stay a while.
What have you done to my daughter?
In Resident Evil Village, one of the first things that you notice is how casually it treats pain. Ethan is stabbed, crushed, and beaten in ways that no human would ever survive. Hands are sliced, bones are shattered, and blood loss is constant. And yet the game rarely lets you take a break to acknowledge it. A quick health kick, a bottle poured, and Ethan keeps moving. At first, this feels like standard video game logic. Damage happens, you heal it, and progress continues. However, the more you play, the more this starts to feel intentional. The game doesn't ask you to fear damage, it screams for you to endure it. Healing in Village isn't framed as recovery. It doesn't feel like relief. There's no sense of safety when your health bar refills. Instead, it becomes more maintenance, a way to remain functional just long enough to continue forward. And the pain is never resolved, it's simply managed. And this subtly changes how you play. You stop reacting emotionally to injury, you stop questioning how Ethan is still standing. And because of that, damage becomes more of an inconvenience. It seems that over time, the game tries to get you to adopt Ethan's mindset. Don't stop, don't reflect, just keep going. What makes this mechanic so effective is how little the attention the game gives it. There's no cutscene pausing to show Ethan's emotional suffering. No moments of self-reflection where he questions what this is doing to him. There's absolutely nothing of that caliber. But at some point, Ethan's body becomes more of a resource than a human body. Something to be used rather than protected. In this game, injury doesn't say you failed, it shows you slowly moving in the right direction. The more damage he takes, the closer he is to finishing what he started. And this is where endurance replaces survival. The traditional horror game will teach you to avoid harm at all costs. What's good about Village is it teaches you that harm is inevitable and largely irrelevant. What does matter is momentum and whether you can stay upright long enough to move forward. This design choice reshapes the emotional tone of the whole experience. Fear fades, anxiety dulls, and pain becomes routine. And before you know it, you're no longer playing cautiously, you're playing committed. Committed to finishing the journey regardless of whatever it costs. By removing lasting consequences from damage, the game strips injury of its meaning. Being sliced up won't destroy Ethan's life, but it does threaten his endurance. And as long as he can endure, the game expects Ethan to continue. This mechanic doesn't judge and explain how he's supposed to survive, it explains why he never stops. Because in a world where pain has no consequence, stopping would mean he could no longer run from the pain. And Village never gives him or the player a chance to do any of that.
You didn't think I'd let you get away, did you?
In this game, you're almost never comfortable. Most of the time, you'll have low ammo and healing items can feel expensive. From the very beginning, the game creates a constant sense of pressure. It doesn't do this through lichens or flying bat things, but through quiet limitation. You're always counting bullets right to the end, always deciding whether an encounter is worth the cost. But here's the important part. RE8 almost never lets you completely fail. You're rarely stuck or soft-locked and never left with absolutely nothing. Enemies drop resources just often enough to keep you going. Exploration rewards you at critical moments. Crafting recipes unlock precisely when the game knows you need them. The system works together to keep you moving forward. You will feel strained, but never broken. Other similar games will use limited resources to create fear. The fear of running out, the fear of being stuck, or the fear of death. This game takes a different approach. Instead of asking whether you can survive, it asks you, do you have what it takes to continue? Every encounter becomes a small calculation. Every heal feels like a trade. Every victory costs something, and over time, that adds up. What the game removes is the fantasy of recovery. There is no point where you stockpile supplies and feel safe again. No moment where the tension releases and you feel ahead of the game. You are always slightly behind, always borrowing from the future to survive the present. This style of gameplay mirrors Ethan perfectly. He is never empowered, never restored, and never truly safe. Like the game, Ethan exists in a state of constant depletion. He keeps going not because he's winning, but because stopping isn't a possibility. The game's resource economy reinforces this idea again and again. If you want to continue, you can, but it will cost the player. And that's what gives this mechanic its emotional weight. The amount of scarcity in this game isn't trying to punish you, it's testing your endurance can you do this? By the time the story reaches its later stages, you are no longer asking whether you have enough to finish the game. You're asking, how much will it cost? Do I have enough bullets? And do I have enough healing items? The shift is subtle, but powerful. Combined with damage that carries no lasting consequence, the scarcity system completes the picture. Ethan's body absorbs pain, his resources absorb the cost, and the game quietly demands that both are spent until the task is complete. This is how Village replaces fear with fatigue, by keeping you stocked up just long enough to endure. And in doing so, it turns resource management into something far more personal. A measure of how much yourself you're willing to give before the journey finally ends. And hey, if moments like this stood out during your playthrough, let me know. I'd love to hear your experiences.
You disgusting outsider.
Even though you spend a lot of time trying to catch your breath, control is never something you truly earn. Your weapons could be taken away and your inventory completely stripped at any time. The game can even remove combat altogether, but it always points in a forward direction. These moments aren't rare, they are woven into the structure of the game itself. Village repeatedly places Ethan in situations where preparation, skill, and confidence suddenly are not enough. Most of the time, control is simply removed altogether, and the game continues without missing a beat. This isn't something the game does by accident, it's a deliberate way to manipulate the flow of the game. RE8 doesn't use the loss of control as a problem, it uses it as a serious reminder that Ethan is not meant to dominate this world, and neither are you. Unlike traditional Resident Evil protagonists, characters who slowly gain mastery through weapons, upgrades, and experience, Ethan's power is always conditional, temporary, and easily revoked. When control is taken away, you're not expected to adapt creatively. You're simply demanded to run, hide, and brace until the moment passes. This can often lead to change how you think as a player. You stop planning long term or stop optimizing routes. Instead, your focus narrows. All that matters is the next door, the next corner, the next few seconds. And in that shift, the line between player and character begins to blur. That's exactly where Ethan exists. He isn't navigating the village because he has control over it. It's just the narrative truth being expressed through mechanics. In a game defined by endurance, loss of control isn't a setback. It's the clearest expression of the story Village is trying to tell. Ethan doesn't survive because he is in control of the game. He survives because he knows what to do when he loses control.
You're persistent, but I've got a rebellion to lead.
Emotions and feelings are never acknowledged or fully explored. There are no crazy monologues or pauses for reflection. Instead, the game lets the world do the talking. RE8 communicates its story through set landscapes rather than dialogue. Abandoned homes, notes written in panic and never finished, the environment isn't just a backdrop for horror. It's a record of fear and loss left behind people who didn't make it out, and the game expects you to figure it out by yourself. Every location you pass through carries a quiet weight. These spaces feel lived in, then abruptly abandoned. The horror doesn't come from spectacle alone, it comes from implication. From the sense that whatever happened here, it happened too fast for anyone to fully react. This reinforces the game's central emotional rhythm. There is no time to stop. No space to grieve, no opportunity to unpack what you're seeing. Just like Ethan, the player is denied emotional release. You're always pulled forward, leaving understanding behind in favor of momentum. You stop looking for answers, you stop expecting explanations, you accept that some things are simply part of the journey. That acceptance is part of what makes Ethan's story linger. Village doesn't frame him as a character who processes trauma, it frames him as someone who is encouraged to move through it. The world becomes his emotional memory, storing the weight of his experience so he doesn't have to. This is why the game's environments feel so heavy even when nothing is happening. They carry unsolved tension, unspoken loss, stories that end without closure. And by refusing to explain these stories easily, Village keeps them alive in your mind. The world remembers what Ethan cannot afford to, and the player, like Ethan, is forced to move through those memories without stopping long enough to fully understand them. In a game about sacrifice, this matters, because it reinforces the idea that Ethan's journey isn't about reflection or understanding. It's about following through and moving forward even when the weight of the world is pressing down around you. The game will never force you to feel a certain way. All it does is build spaces and you fill in the rest, which leaves us wanting more.
A simpleton like you shouldn't give me trouble.
In most games, a major reveal is meant to change everything. It can sometimes reframe the entire story, other times it can alter the game mechanics altogether. But in Resident Evil Village, the truth about Ethan Winters does something far more unsettling. It changes Nothing. When the revelation finally arrives, the game doesn't reward you with new abilities. The controls stay the same, the system continues uninterrupted, and the game asks you to continue forward exactly as you did before. Because by the time the truth is revealed, the game has already taught you how to think. It has already trained you to endure pain without reflection, to manage scarcity without relief, to accept loss of control, and to read the world instead of waiting for explanations. The reveal doesn't introduce a new idea, it confirms one. Ethan's body, his suffering, and his persistence were never meant to be questioned. So when the truth surfaces, it doesn't disrupt the experience, it validates it. Everything you've already done suddenly makes sense. The casual healing, the constant depletion, the emotional weight carried by the environment instead of the character. None of this was accidental. In Village, survival was never the goal, uncovering the intricate interwoven story was. The reveal strips away any remaining illusion that Ethan's journey was about winning or escaping. It reframes the entire experience as something far more somber. A man spending himself piece by piece until he has nothing. There is no crisis for Ethan's identity or any pause for reflection. It doesn't change what needs to be done. His purpose was never tied to understanding himself. It was tied to finishing what he started. Mechanically, this is the boldest choice the game makes. By refusing to change the gameplay after the reveal, the game tells you something quietly devastating. Ethan's humanity was never the point. His willingness to continue was. The systems don't adapt because they don't need to. You've already been playing the truth the entire time. And when the story finally reaches its end, the reveal retroactively colors everything that came before it. Not as a twist, but as a confirmation, a final acknowledgement that Ethan's journey was never about survival, power, or control. It was about seeing it through. In that sense, the reveal doesn't exist to shock you, it exists to justify the cost. It explains why Ethan never stopped, why the game never let you stop, and why, when it's finally over, the story doesn't feel triumphant, but it feels complete. When you step back and look at Resident Evil Village as a whole, Ethan Winter's story stops being about survival entirely. Through its systems, the way it treats damage, scarcity, control, and silence, the game never asks you to overcome the village. It asks you to push through it, to keep moving forward without relief, without answers, and without stopping long enough to question the cost. By the time the truth is revealed, nothing needs to change because the experience has already taught you who Ethan Winters is. He isn't remembered because he was powerful, he's remembered because he did not stop. RE8 doesn't end with triumph or escape, it ends with completion. And that's why Ethan's story doesn't feel heroic, it feels heavy, it feels final, and long after the game is over, it continues to live in your mind. Hey, you made it to the end, and thanks for watching. If this kind of analysis is your thing, you might want to enjoy what's up next.